I guess my history in being in business and being brought up in business sort of said to me, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull our overheads. We're going to get our cash flows right. We're going to look at the business and make sure that part of the business is as tight as it can be. But I decided to back myself and, I sold an apartment that I had and decided to put that into the business. And I could have made a different decision, but I knew that Gingerlilly really was a great brand and had legs, and I knew that we just had to pivot.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Organisation Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. My guest today is Vanessa Sofia, an EO Melbourne member and founder of the fashion and sleepwear label Gingerlilly, which she started in 2006. Her products are stocked on the iconic David Jones and internationally in Brown Thomas and on Wolf and Badger. Her journey began as a little girl in her parents' clothing business. She later on worked in Milan, Italy for 3 years at Prada's head office before starting her own business. Now, in this episode, Vanessa shares one of the hardest challenges in her business, where she experienced a drastic drop in wholesale sales. She had to sell a property and inject personal money into saving the business. Now, Vanessa will discuss the ins and outs of the fashion industry and how to survive and thrive in this competitive market. Well, join me in welcoming Vanessa. Well, welcome to the show, Vanessa. So great to have you here.
Yeah, lovely to be here too.
So let's delve into your journey in the fashion industry and obviously share with the audience some of your war stories. But before that, can you share with us, your growing up? Because I know that you said your family was in the fashion business. So how did it all get started?
Yeah, well, like they say, the cliched saying, it's in my blood. Mum and Dad ran a family business which grew to be a substantial size with 32 retail stores, wholesale operation, and I was brought up in that business. So I guess I, from conversations around the dinner table to going there after school was always destined for this.
Yeah. So tell me more about the actual business, because the reason why I'm curious is when I moved from Vietnam to Australia in 1992, all of the Vietnamese people were in the sewing business and they all had machines they invested in and turned their garage or spare bedroom into a operation, like a warehouse. I mean, yeah, like a production house. And I was caught in that, and I was only 10 when my mum made me work. And it wasn't a great experience. So basically in the Vietnamese world and the sewing time at that time, it wasn't a nice experience. It wasn't like this fancy business that we're proud of. It was grind and everyone's working till really late nights. And so was it different for you growing up in that fashion?
Well, I mean, we sort of had a bit of a pivot as well. So when I was a child and less involved, before I came on board, my memories, at the warehouse or at the factory and office we actually had internal machinists that were working for us. So if you can imagine, it was all sort of, you had all your design rooms and then you had just sort of rows and rows of machinists that worked in-house. Then later on we transitioned, and it's interesting that you should say that your family there's a connection there. We then transitioned to a model where we were more just design studio, and this is when I was involved in the business. And we would outsource all of that to our beautiful, Vietnamese makers. Most of them were Vietnamese in that community. And we became part of their family. We would be invited along to their parties and, we even got invited to one of the weddings, and it was a beautiful relationship. And I kind of was a little bit saddened when I heard you sort of giving that other element where, obviously from your perspective, you didn't enjoy it because I guess from where I stood, I was like, we're working with these beautiful people that are really invested in helping us grow. We had a great relationship, and I'm huge for that. Even now with my suppliers, I am huge for that. They're your family. They're your everything. How you work with people. That's how you not only get great results. It's not even about that. It's just your core values, I guess.
Yeah. And I get it. My Vietnamese family were great work ethics, and most Vietnamese are, so they probably would put a smile on, and they're grateful that they even got the job and for you to provide that job. But it's just behind the scenes. And in my own family, because we were new to Australia, we had to work a lot harder to kind of catch up. So that's probably why my experience is a bit different. So then what led you into starting your own business? Like, did you have a gap between working with them before you went into doing the same thing in the future?
Yep. So basically, we did that. And then as the family grows, I guess you've got siblings and then, other people that come into not into the business, but other people that come into the mix. And I think a decision was made that we were going to, sort of transition and I guess stop that model. And I decided that I wanted to put a feather in my own hat. So because from a very young age, I was, sort of just working with the family business and I knew nothing else. And because I do nothing by arms, Lynn, I decided that, do you know what? I'm going to go to Milan and I'm going to pursue my dream of fashion. And really, I didn't have huge expectations apart from the fact that I wanted it to be a great chapter of my life and let's see what happens. And so off I went. And this is an incredible story because I think my mum said, you haven't organised your paperwork. I'm sure I'll see you in 3 months or, this is basically going to be a holiday,
Yes.
But no, I proved everybody wrong and I really did put that feather in my hat. I actually, so no, I didn't have paperwork, but I managed to get a job with Prada at the head office, which was incredible. And I also managed to get them to sponsor me. And so that's how I sorted out my paperwork. So basically they've got a system where you can work for them and then they pay you sort of, at the end of that contract. So that gave us 3 months to get, things in line. And I loved my time there. I learned so much from that big fashion house. It was incredible.
Yeah. So how many years was that?
3.
3 years. So how old were you then? And was it in Italy?
Yeah, it was in Milan, and I went when I was 27 and came back when I was 30. And I guess these chats are sort of personal as well as business. So the reason why I came back was essentially I wanted that picket fence and the 3 kids, and I thought, I'm loving life and my career's great. And at the time, I actually had been even approached to set up an office over there for Gas Jeans. And it made me really think, hang on, if I start taking out leases and I start really putting my roots here, this is no longer a chapter. This is it. And so I decided to come back. And when I got back, I went to work for Country Road. I helped them launch their baby range. So I worked directly under Sophie Holt, who's iconic in the industry. Answered directly to her. I loved my experience there. It was only short. I only worked there for 12 months because I think in my heart I wanted to start my own business.
Right.
Here we are. That's what led me to Gingerlilly. So,
tell me more about your current business. What kind of target audience and basically, range of products that do you sell?
Yeah, so target audience is very much women from, you bleed off either side, but I'd say from 30 to 55, and it's just that, my core thing is to just make people feel comfortable in their pajamas and feel stylish and comfortable. So it's all about, quality and how you feel in your sleepwear. And at the time when I launched, which was back in 2006, there wasn't much around in loungewear. So back then we used to say, someone could, whether I shouldn't use the cliche of a tradesperson, but, if you had to open the door in your pajamas, you still felt good. Someone popped over for a cup of coffee and you were in your pajamas, you looked good, you felt good, they were flattering. So we still live by that now. That's who we are.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you didn't go down the luxury kind of side because you worked in that kind of industry? What made you decide to kind of go down the path of maybe more affordability and more for the masses?
I think that's where I saw the niche. So linking to the story of leaving Country Road, I actually had to have my tonsils out and I had to go into hospital. And, as a 31-year-old or 32-year-old, I looked around and I kind of didn't want puppy dogs and I wanted something sophisticated. But I think the luxury pajama really started later. And yes, we've come on board with that. We are launching a pure silk range where our pajamas will be $500 and they will certainly, sort of move in that direction. And we have done silk in the past. We've done affordable sort of silk, but we've done that higher end. But our core range, our core customer is that person that really does want value. And it was born from probably me linking that back to, getting the tonsils out. I think at that time, as a 32-year-old, I was looking for a pair of pajamas for hospital that were value but looked cool and, stylish.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many years ago was that? And did you launch it on e-commerce or was it distributed in department stores?
Yeah. So we started in 2006 or the concept then went to market in 2007. It was launched as a wholesale business. I went off to do a friend of mine. We sort of did a bit of market research and a friend of mine was exhibiting at the Reed trade fairs. So I went and sort of had a look at one and spoke to them. And because of our beautiful packaging, it allowed us to sort of enter into that gift market. So I went off and did a trade fair and I cannot tell you how busy we were. It was like incredible. What we did in sales in 4 days was just astronomical. So it kind of it sort of changed the trajectory for the brand to sort of be very led by the trade fairs and that wholesale market. And then obviously we were still set up to sell online from the very beginning. And I remember 2007 Valentine's Day, we had a big editorial in the Herald Sun and, with one of our gorgeous campaign shots. And I remember online, I think that day, of one style selling 14 pairs, which for a launch business was big. But I got very, I don't know if you call it sidetracked, because it has grown, it's enabled us to grow the business to where it could be. But I got very governed by trade fairs and wholesale because there was just they were hungry for it. There was a huge market and it allowed me to grow very, very quickly.
So at the moment, it is still wholesale and online direct to consumers or?
Yep. At the moment, it's both. But I think as we all know, the trend is, there's definitely, and especially since COVID, a huge pivot. So we've seen astronomical growth in our online and we're doing a lot to grow that part of the business because that's where we see the future. And we're very lucky and privileged to be placed in some gorgeous department stores. We've been in David Jones now for 6 years, and they see us as a brand that they'd like to grow with, and so we're sort of very established with David Jones. We're on the Iconic, so that's obviously another platform, online platform. And recently we've actually entered into Brown Thomas in Ireland, so that was a bit exciting. Going back to the luxury, see, it's still I love being in stores that sell Gucci,
Yes, I love it.
It's silly me.
So you were telling me early on that there were a period of time where business wasn't going good and you even had to bet on yourself and invest the money in. So can you tell us more about what happened and how did you get through it?
Absolutely. So again, being very trade fair orientated, and like I said, it's been fabulous because it's allowed us to grow very quickly, but it also in 2014, we had a season where we went off to the trade fair and we were used to doing X by now and, we put away X amount of sales and we went off and we did a trade fair, and after the trade fair, we were like 50% down and we sort of went, my goodness, that's huge, because that tells you how the rest of the season's going to sort of go. And so I panicked and I sort of started, obviously when that happens and your cash flows, the result of that is your cash flows are down. And I sort of, I guess my history in being in business and being brought up in business sort of said to me, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull our overheads, we're going to get our cash flows right. We're going to look at the business and make sure that part of the business is as tight as it can be. But I decided to back myself and, I sold an apartment that I had and decided to put that into the business. And I could have made a different decision, but I knew that Gingerlilly really was a great brand and had legs, and I knew that we just had to pivot. And I worked really hard at that. So, from that, good things really came, because I guess I learned that I sort of had to even work harder at my designs and at my quality, just make sure we were ticking everything. And I really started to, from back then, sort of get my PR agency to really start pushing that side of things and the online, and started introducing SEO and all of these sort of things. And I guess it was a turning point, but a good one that came from something bad, I guess.
Yeah. And so with what happened, is there anything that you felt like, okay, from now on, I'm going to make sure I do this or that so that I don't get myself in that position again to have to, put money back into it? Is there any kind of rules for yourself?
100%. And you know what? It's really hard truth to say to myself, but complacency. Just don't get too comfortable. In this industry, they say you're only as good as your last range, but I feel like that could apply to lots of industries. I make sure that I love every garment. And when we do our campaign shoots, everything's right. And it's dotting your I's and crossing your T's. And I think it's just, I think that really taught me that you just can't be complacent in the business ever, so.
Yeah. And how has the industry been? Because I know now that maybe because I'm older now and I can afford, and I feel like there's so many options, so many clothing brands, and whether it's that or it's just that it's grown, there's just so much more people in the market. So what has your big experience been since 2006? What have you seen, and what are some challenges in this industry for you?
Yeah, I just think just keep being better. I just keep pushing yourself to be better. I mean, I every range, I feel like our range is better than the last one. And if I don't feel like that, I'm just, I'm not doing what I should be doing. And the other thing is, and it ties back to what we sort of first spoke about, relationships. Nurturing those relationships. For me, it comes naturally because it's what I love and it's just what I do. But whether it's working with the buyers and building those relationships and being fair, particularly with your suppliers. I've had my suppliers for 15 years, and that's because, something's running late and I played a part in that because I changed something or whatever. I'm owning that, and I never make them air freight anything at their expense. Or I've heard other people in the industry are really quite harsh, and I think that it doesn't align with me, and I think it doesn't work because if something goes wrong, I sort of look at it and say, is there something I contributed to this? Did I not look at the fact that this needed top stitching and therefore and we don't have many problems because I feel like I've been in the industry forever. So but the odd one does slip through, and I hold myself accountable rather than putting that cost onto someone else. I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the long-term relationship rather than just a short-term transaction that we worry about. Yeah. So looking back, when you first started, you obviously had to wear different hats. I'm assuming you would have got involved with design and maybe get your hands dirty with manufacturing or just producing prototypes. But what were your roles like back then, and what do you do now as the owner of the business? Yeah.
I mean, I think that, as far as being creative director, that's what I want to be always. And I think you've got to do what you love. So as far as, design, okay, you have your help in to assist you. But I think as far as directing all of that, I did it then and I want to do that forever. So what I sort of do, and I'm laughing because it's almost the things I don't like. I like to, where I have weaknesses, spreadsheets are not really my thing. I delegate those things out. And I mean, these days we're obviously all forced to, know what's really going on in your business, but I sort of get people to report that and then come to me and explain it.
Yeah. So where to next with the fashion brand? Are you expanding to more different markets or?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we're concentrating now on really going into different marketplaces. So, we are ready to, we're in Robinsons in Singapore already, but we're ready to start hitting those department stores now. We've got years of precedent of good sell-throughs, here and overseas. And so, I'm now chasing the Selfridges and, that type of thing. So, Nordstrom, et cetera, because we're ready, because you would never go into those department stores if your supply chain and your product wasn't spot on. You would do yourself good. So for me, I'm ready for that.
So how do you actually pitch to them, and what do they look for in order to?
This is the thing. I mean, you can onboard, and I've got agents in the UK, for example, and they've got relationships, and so it's a matter of doing the trade fairs. We're about to do 2 trade fairs over in the UK. Now, putting yourself in front of the buyers in that sense, and it's doesn't happen overnight. And look, it's a little bit being at the right place at the right time, but it's a lot about having the product that they're sort of looking for. So I feel really confident with that. So we've just got to execute the other, and it may be, again with the US, it was really funny. I mean, I was just there we're in Wolf and Badger over in the US, and I was visiting that store and decided to grab a catalogue myself. And this is sort of old school, self-marketing, if you want to call it, and, walk into Nordstrom and chat to the girls and show them, just even the girls working there, and they were all excited about it. And I know they're not the ones making the decisions, but I left my catalogues with them, and you just never know, like it's that. And then it may be via LinkedIn that you're reaching out to buyers, and it may be via agencies and distributors, but sooner or later you crack it, I think.
Yeah. And so working with these guys, do they order X amount of quantity and keep it, in their warehouse so they can, deliver it straight to the customers? Or how does it work? And sometimes I'm worried about like having to like buy all these stock and invest, and then they pay you a lot later. Is there kind of some...
Yeah, our business model is very much like our wholesale business model is very much does have that, where you are really financing a lot of these, these situations. But that is just that model probably won't change. So what we do is we actually drop ship for many of these platforms already. So that's easy. That goes straight to the consumer, and they just basically that happens there. Alternatively, with the department stores, I don't produce specifically for them because I do a decent volume myself. If they came in and they said that they wanted, 150 units of each, for me, it's not a problem to produce that because I just tag it onto, the 1,000, for example, that I'm already doing. And that's a really easy business model for me. So whether it means that I'm holding that in my warehouse and then shipping it to them, it's all workable. Sometimes we've held it in overseas, manufacturers have held it for me. Sometimes I've negotiated with the buyer to take it a little bit early. Again, it's a case-by-case scenario.
Yeah.
It would be difficult to produce directly for them because, even stores like, DJs, they might want 500 of one item, but they might want 100 of another item. And if you were producing specifically for them, I think you'd have a really big hurdle. But if you've already got your business model, then it works,
Yeah, looking back, when you first started, how were you as a leader compared to now? How have you grown as an entrepreneur or a leader to your team?
Yeah. Very hands-on leader back then, and now very talkative leader. I think I'm a really fair leader. I feel like my staff can just come to me with anything, which I think is really good. If I'm going to, I probably maybe not as disciplined and a strategic leader as what I could be. I guess I'm working on that, but I just want to also stay authentic because at the end of the day, I've been in business now for, sort of 16 years and it's worked. I'm not saying that, obviously my journey could be a little bit different or my leadership qualities could be a little bit different, but I think as long as I'm a well-respected leader, yeah.
Do you see yourself still in this industry for the next 20 years, or are you having the itch of maybe trying something new, considering you've been in this industry all your life?
No, there's no changing for me. In fact, I've got 2 teenage children and there's a little part of me that's, obviously I'll encouraging them to do their own thing as my mother did with me. But there's a little part of me that sort of is laughing because I see that, my daughter is exceptionally good at art. And I sort of think to myself, not only am I not moving, but I'd love to have, a very established brand that they could, I'm only saying this because they're not around, that they could perhaps take over one day.
Okay.
They've got to go and work for someone else. But I mean, that's my goal. I'd love to build Gingerlilly to be a legacy and,
Yeah. And so let's talk about EO. How did you find EO? What's your journey like? How has that impacted your business or life?
Yeah, look, a really close girlfriend of mine whom I respect so much as a person and as a businesswoman, recommended me to EO. So my journey was that I didn't give it much more thought than that. I just felt like if she's recommending this and her exact words were, you'd be perfect for EO, I sort of thought, okay, that sounds great. And me being me, of course, when we had our first onboarding interview, all I heard was, you can go and study at Harvard and these are some of the great things it offers. And I was like, I'm there, where do I sign up? So I didn't really look into it that much. And so it's been an interesting journey because I've discovered what it's all about. And I'm actually delighted with what it's all about. There was some slight resistance at the start because I sort of felt like, shouldn't we just be learning things to keep growing the business and getting to that next stage? Isn't that the whole focus? And all of a sudden I've sort of relaxed and really learnt what you get from EO, and it feels like it's coming together. I've only been there since October, but it certainly feels like it's, the right match for me. And I'm delighted with it.
Yeah. So what have you learnt? What are some key things that you feel like, hey, I was a different person, just a few months ago, but I just took away this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to have control, you've got to let go of control is a big one. That is the spirit of EO. I've learned a calmness. As you can see, I'm sort of quite a bubbly, firing, reactive personality, but I've learnt, and I think I'm in a particularly good forum. I'm really happy with my forum, so I don't know if I, speak for everyone, but I've learnt a calmness and a way of dealing with things, with that thought process rather than that reactive process. I think that's huge for me.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that you want your kids to eventually probably be an entrepreneur, take over, what advice would you give to your kids if they were listening right now and they're like, Mum, all right, I want to start a business or I want to take over your business? What would be some of the things you would tell them?
Yeah. Look, the first thing is definitely, as I did, even though I did it later, go out and work for those big companies. Learn. I was at an EO breakfast the other day and the presenter said, go and make mistakes on other people's money.
I love that.
I thought that was brilliant. There's another good time.
I love that.
But yeah, you really do learn from these big companies, and so I would definitely encourage that. Whether it would be working abroad or even here, the contacts and networking that you also do. So I think that's an absolute must. And then I've always said, I just, having been in, my parents' business with all the ups and downs and all of that, I would definitely say 100% enjoy the journey, enjoy the now, enjoy the getting there, just really, it's such a roller coaster. I've seen years and years now, from when I wasn't involved and just on looking to what my parents went through, in my early days before they were even wholesalers, when they had a retail store and, there was one stage I must have been only 5 years old, but when that burned down and then, I've watched my mum pick herself up and keep going and getting better and better and better and growing with every roller coaster, with every dip.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, just be prepared for that, to enjoy that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you say enjoy, is it that you create fun along the way, or is it just embracing the ups and downs because it's part of learning? It gives you value even though you don't think it's fun to go through problems.
I mean, I probably separate them out. I probably did muddle them all into one. It's two things. It's enjoy the journey, make sure you remember to take the holidays on the way and have family time, and make sure you immerse yourself in your work, but you look back and say, I wouldn't have done anything, I've enjoyed getting here is the first thing, because you don't know that you're always going to stay there. And I guess coming from someone who's seen, that happen in business, I know that you need to enjoy the journey, but also what you just said then, also embrace those challenges. I'm probably babbling now, but another thing, just last week, I had a letter from Gingerlilly London saying, basically suing me for using the same name and stopping me from using it in the UK. Now, something like that, you could either make a big frenzy of it, or you could deal with it and embrace it, learn from it. I've now got I already had my trademarks in order in Australia, but now I'm making sure they're in order in the US, through Asia, Europe. Like, just take from those situations and I think that's sort of
and then you can pass on your learnings to others, which will be helpful. It doesn't go to waste. So this leads me to the last question. So what do you want your kids or others to remember you for, with everything that you're trying to do and helping others?
I think I'd like to be remembered for perhaps carrying on the legacy that I had growing up, and I feel like I've perhaps continued that, which I think is a huge self-achievement. And I think I want to be remembered for maybe juggling both hats, mum, business. I think that's big for me, and I feel like I've done okay in both. And you know what? I think creating a really nice product, I think there's not enough said for that. Like, it's, it's not changing worlds, but it sort of is in its own way. Like, it's I think creating a really nice product that people feel really good in also for me is a great legacy.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally resonate with you. I'm so proud that I can be a mum and I can be a wife and doing everything around the house and run a business as well. So thank you so much, Vanessa, for your time today. I learned so much, and you're such a bubbly personality. I can't wait to meet you in person. But once again, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been great. And, I could chat all these things all day. So love it. Thank you.
I'll make sure to put all your details in the description below so people can also connect with you online. So thank you. Bye.
That's great. Bye.